Hello there guys, welcome back to the channel, welcome back for another video. I hope you are having a great weekend wherever in the world you are. Now today, we're going to be looking at another big interview, this time done by Noisy Pixel, with Vice President of Cyberconnect2, Taiichiro Miyazaki. And it is a story or a question we hear pretty much every year, and it concerns the remaster or remake of the original Project.Hack titles, those being Infection, Mutation, Outbreak, and Quarantine. We're just going to abbreviate it to IMOQ for the purposes of this video. Now, when the first game came out back in 2002, it was actually quite a novel concept. So the whole idea of Project.Hack was a novel concept. It was not just a series of games, it was a multimedia franchise. There was an anime which acted as a prequel or foundation for the setting that you see later in the games. You had the games themselves, you had manga tie-ins, you had merchandise like trading cards. It was a pretty big deal back then. And while I wouldn't say that the .hack fanbase is the biggest around, it is certainly a devout following, ones that have been invested for a very long time, as you would expect with any sort of long-running interconnected series. And Bandai Namco still shows recognition to .hack even today. For the 20th anniversary, I believe, they did merchandise and events, so they do remember that the series exists at the very least. Now, the biggest telltale sign that they still have faith in .hack as a franchise, I guess, was the remaster of the collection of the free .gu games in Last Recode for the 15th anniversary of the series. But even with Bandai Namco doing that, the original 4 games are still stuck on the PlayStation 2 to this day. And Cyberconnect2 have said for many years that they would love to remaster or remake the games, but the decision ultimately lies with Bandai Namco to give the green light, and they've said that for many years. In this interview, Vice President Miyazaki said this to Noisy Pixel. I hate that this might sound repetitive. We're very passionate about the .hack series, and bringing back the original quadrilogy and even remaking those is something I'd like to do. However, although this is our original IP, its license is held by Bandai Namco Entertainment, and without their green light, we can't really do anything. So at this time, we urge the readers to fire away all the requests to them so that we can get the green light from them to work on those titles. And the thing is with the original Project.Hack games, or IMOQ again, is that they reflect a worrying trend in this day and age. As modern hardware advances, there are many games, excellent games as well, well-lauded games at their time, that are still confined to their original hardware with no port in sight. You can think of other collective titles and series like Xenosaga, Panzer Dragoon Saga, and to a lesser extent I guess you could say Trails in the Sky as well, which even though it is available on PC, it's not available on any other modern platform like PS4, 5 or Nintendo Switch, because that ultimately lies with Xseed, who have the rights. It's not NIS America who deal with that, so until Xseed announce that they want to port them themselves, that's unfortunately dead in the water as well. At best, the developers may acknowledge the fan reception and the fan requests, but it never really follows through beyond that. And IMOQ, at this present age, definitely falls within that particular bracket. Now, I know people have their own sorts of thoughts about stuff like this, but I'm gonna say it now. Collections of games, like the original 4 .hack games, is a clear example in favour of why video game emulation exists. I personally have never played the games. I've heard about them, never played them, but outside of emulation, let's say that I did want to play them. I got the sudden urge to play through the original tetralogy. Outside of emulation, it would be very difficult for me to do so. First of all, I'd have to get myself a PlayStation 2. Finding a working one, probably not going to set you back too much, maybe about 50 quid in the UK, I'd think, to find one that's working or in good working order at the very least, just to play these games, let me add. But getting the hardware for what was one of the best-selling consoles of all time, if not the best, is not really going to be too much of a problem. The real issue comes in actually getting the games. Infection's not too bad. Like, I believe complete in-box prices for Infection stand at around $20, which is about 17 quid. So, not that bad to find Infection, but then, as you get further into the series, scarcity starts to kick in, supply goes down because of course people don't want to sell games that make up their complete collection, but the price also shoots up as a result of that. Quarantine, the last one in the tetralogy, is so expensive you're looking at about $250 for a complete inbox price, which is insanity. Absolute insanity for a game like this. Scarcity, demand, market forces, it's pushed it right up. Of course, COVID did also balloon prices as well. We saw that when people were in lockdown, but $250 for a game, man, that's insanity. It is one of the most infamous games in this day and age. I think a friend of mine, Super Derek, he managed to find the original 4 for about $100 back in the day. He must be laughing his nuts off. He must be absolutely laughing his nuts off what they are now. But anyway, let's say that, you know, I found the games. I found the games at a decent, well, I say a decent price. I found the games for maybe about 300 quid for the whole lot. Even if I bought it, I'm only doing it for collection purposes. I'm doing it to probably play the games once, and then they're just sitting in my collection forever. It doesn't actually support the developer at all. As soon as it goes to that secondary market, I'm not supporting the developer. I'm supporting Fast Tony halfway around the world. Unless the seller literally writes down a clause and says something along the lines of, okay, you pay £250 for quarantine, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to send 50% of that over to Bandai Namco, and they can give half of the royalties over to Cyberconnect2 as well, and I'll put a neat little bow on it as well. Unless they say that, I am not paying the developer, I'm paying the seller, and the seller is just lining their pockets. So at the end of the day, if the publisher and developer, or developer shall I say, isn't going to give me the option to support them, they're not going to give me the avenue to do so, then I sure as hell am going to emulate it. And it is the sad reality that we have to go down this route. Of course, if the avenue was there, I would support it. I would buy the game, of course I would. I want it for my own collection. I want to support the developer and show them that this series does have a fan base and that they might be able to revive it or maybe do more games in the future. But if it's not there, what can I do? So the idea of accessibility for classic titles is always a plus, always, especially when game preservation becomes more and more a topic of concern as the years go on. I mean, even recently, look at NIS America delisting, what was it, 7 games from digital storefronts, the 3DS store closing down, Utawareru Mono, the 2 Mask games, for example. Atlus lost the rights to the 2 Mask games, and now you can't get them anymore. You can't get them on digital storefronts, and it's caused the physical copies to absolutely shoot up in value. And unfortunately, when those digital copies go, the general layman is not going to be able to buy it unless they dig really deep into their pockets, which is a sad reality, to be honest. Now, let's go back to the remaster or remake, or the possibility of it coming. Like, is it actually possible? Well, Bandai Namco, they're a for-profit company, so it all comes down to commercial reception and returns. That's all they care about. They already did the free.gu games with Last Recode, and obviously I think there was a 4th game in there as well, which was included as part of that collection. But remastering the original 4 releases is not, let's say they go down the route of a remaster. Just remastering them in this day and age, not as simple as people make it out to be. It's not a case of just taking those assets and just polishing them up and then re-releasing. In some cases, they have to be built from the ground up again. Look at Final Fantasy X and X2 when they came to, I think it was the PC, and the amount of work they put into that. Doing that for 4 games which aren't nearly as popular as Final Fantasy X, sorry, .hack fans, but it's not as popular as Final Fantasy X. You know, putting that into question, the resources investment that's going to go into these games to make it happen and to make sure they're up to snuff for modern platforms, big time investment there. And then there's the question of whether the games have actually aged well mechanically. Like, even die-hard fans, I see die-hard fans talk about these games, but they say, even though they love them, they are a chore to play through in some cases. Like, some of those gameplay mechanics have not aged too well. It might be again the case that Bandai Namco or Cyberconnect2, once they get involved as well, are going to have to spruce it up and bring it in line with modern standards. Again, that's just more work and time. So there's certainly development barriers to overcome, but in my opinion, the biggest hurdle to IMOQ getting a remaster/remake as a collection comes in another series entirely that Bandai Namco look after. It's a series that used to be very popular and had a very similar premise to .hack, and even now, even though that the popularity has sort of waned, it's still a money printer, and it's Sword Art Online. You can't go anywhere in Japan, any sort of otaku store or hobby store, without seeing something related to Sword Art Online, whether it be an Asuna figure or poster or card sleeves, whatever it may be. Sword Art Online is still a cash cow, an aging cash cow, let's be honest, but Bandai Namco are still getting plenty of that fresh cream out of the udders of Sword Art Online. It's still giving them plenty of beautiful milk, so they're going to harvest that baby for all it's worth. And unfortunately, even though it has waning popularity, Sword Art Online is arguably still more popular than .hack. I mean, think about what happened last year. In April 2022, in probably the most ballsy / trolly moment that Bandai Namco do, and I refuse to believe that they didn't do this on purpose. Remember April 2022 last year? They trademarked the name Last Recollection silently. It pretty much went under the radar for many people. And then people drew the parallels. They looked and go, Last Recollection, Last Recode. Oh, we're gonna get the original 4 games remastered. Thank you very much, Bandai Namco. What did they do? It turned out that it was not .hack that was getting a remaster, it was just Sword Art Online Last Recollection. In the virtual space, you could have heard a pin drop. I refuse once again to believe that Bandai Namco didn't do that on purpose. They 100% did it on purpose, knowing the similarities it was going to bring, knowing that they were going to get more eyes onto it. In their eyes, any publicity is good publicity. Oh my god, the disappointment when it happened though, but regardless, Sword Art Online is the priority for Bandai Namco over .hack in the present age. I'm not saying it will never happen, never say never, of course, never say never, because, well, anything can happen nowadays, but until Sword Art Online loses a bit of its popularity, until they see the tangible reward for actually pursuing .hack, I can't see it happening anytime soon. Maybe for the 25th anniversary or something like that, or maybe they'll just surprise us completely. Now, solutions around this. Some fans have suggested to Cyberconnect2 directly that they make a Spiritual Successor, a game that is .hack in pretty much everything but name. They can develop it themselves, they can now publish it themselves as well. They did it with Fuga Melodies of Steel 2. Now, VP Miyazaki, he did say that it could be an option, but he would prefer if fans went to Bandai Namco and basically got them to remaster those games. They have the affinity to the .hack series, they have a lot of love for it, and they would rather just work on that series by itself. So the question then remains is that if Miyazaki is appealing to the fans to make it clear to Bandai Namco that they want the 4 games remastered or remade for modern consoles, has fan power ever worked? It has. Several times, in fact. I mean, you look at, for example, Xenoblade Chronicles 1. Xenoblade Chronicles 1 initially was not even going to come to North America. Nintendo of North America felt it wasn't going to be worth the time, so it was only going to be coming out in Europe, and that's why we got the European or the English style, the English accents for the voice actors, because North America had no desire to do voiceovers for the game. They had no reason to. And it was only via Project Rainfall that Nintendo of America finally started to see that this game would actually be a success for them to pursue. And what Project Rainfall did specifically is that they appealed to the main language that businesses work with. Money. Money. That is what it all comes down to. They showed to Nintendo of America that Xenoblade Chronicles 1 was going to make them a lot of money. And they did that by pre-ordering Monado, The Beginning of the World, which was the original working title of Xenoblade Chronicles 1 before it released. They did that by pre-ordering that game and putting it to the top of the pre-order charts for one day. They showed that there was demand for that game, and eventually Nintendo of America had to concede and go, okay, fine, you've clearly shown that you guys want this, we're gonna do it. We're gonna go ahead and do this. And you know what? Massive success. Xenoblade Chronicles as a series, now one of the quintessential modern releases. Everyone thinks about it when they think of brilliant RPGs in the space. And then other examples, I mean, you think of Star Ocean 2R, which recently got announced. That came about because of the work of fans. After the release of Divine Force, people made it clear once again and reiterated that they wanted some sort of remake or remaster of Star Ocean Second Story. We got it. And then Atelier Sophie 2. Atelier Sophie 2, it was to mark the anniversary of the series, but it was also brought about because Japanese polls that were put out for popularity of characters had Sophie at the top pretty much all the time. Sophie and Plakta were very popular characters, and then that was a big reason why Gust decided to pursue a sequel for Atelier Sophie, and you know what? It turned out being one of the best games in the franchise, at least in my opinion. So this is the thing, if fans can show companies that projects like this are worth it from a monetary standpoint, then companies have no excuse to turn a blind eye. Companies in general will respond to those positive and tangible results, and in the case of .Hack, the only way we can really show that to Bandai Namco directly is by buying the collection of Last Recode. That's the only way we can really do it, the only feasible avenue we can use outside of buying merchandise, but good luck doing that unless you live in Japan. And the thing is, I do think that Last Recode did sell well when it first released. It's done fairly decently, but not enough that Bandai Namco have taken the initiative and decided, yeah, let's go ahead with the other 4 games. There just needs to be more of a push maybe to make that apparent, whether it be mail letters or some sort of collective drive like Project Rainfall again, which I would love to see happen. I'd definitely take part in that if it came to, but unfortunately at the moment Bandai Namco don't really have the incentive to do so unless something massive happens that they just cannot ignore. You'd think that these games aren't going to be coming anytime soon, but I'd like to think they will eventually. Whether it be for another anniversary, 25th anniversary, or whatever that may be. Certainly be within their interest to do so, and I think it probably would be a success for them to do so as well. You know, just got to show your support, as long as they give the avenue to do so, and, you know, show Bandai Namco that we want the original games. But there we go, guys, that is all we're going to be talking about today. Do you think that we're going to be getting these games? Put your opinion in the comment section below. Maybe, you know, a representative of Bandai Namco might even look at this and go, oh, okay, maybe, you know, this might be a good idea. I doubt it, but, you know, we can dream. Anyway, guys, take it easy. I'll see you next week.